What if Stoic wisdom is hidden in the universe? We think we know the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king; Seneca, the statesman who stared down a tyrant; Epictetus, the slave who became a master of his own mind. We see them as champions of logic, the people who taught us how to build an inner citadel to stay strong when the world gets chaotic. They taught us that virtue is what matters most, and that we can't control what happens to us, only how we react. Their wisdom is super practical, a toolkit for living a good life, all based on reason and self-control. But what if that's only half the story? What if that famous, rock-solid logic wasn't the final answer, but was actually a key? A key meant to unlock secrets, not just about our minds, but about the very fabric of the universe itself. What if the Stoics, these masters of rationality, were actually pointing the way to something far more cosmic? What if their philosophy, which we love for being so logical, was really a vessel carrying a much deeper truth? A truth hidden in plain sight, tucked away in their view of the cosmos, their interpretation of myths, and even their rituals. Today, we're going to step beyond the usual Stoic self-help and explore a wild idea: that Stoicism isn't just a philosophy for a better life, but a key to understanding the hidden wisdom of the universe. The problem: the Stoicism we think we know. For most of us, Stoicism is about being tough. It's the stiff upper lip in the face of hardship, the calm in the middle of a storm. We read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations and see a man struggling with the weight of power, trying to stay rational and fair. We turn to Seneca's letters and find advice on handling grief, anger, and the fear of death. We study Epictetus and learn to separate what's in our control from what isn't. And this version of Stoicism is incredibly powerful. It's guided leaders and comforted people for over 2,000 years. It gives us a world that can be messy and unpredictable, and then hands us a shield: our own ability to reason and choose. The main message seems to be that the universe is one thing and our mind is another. The goal? To make your mind into a fortress that can handle whatever life throws at you. The universe is just there. Our freedom is found inside our own heads. This is the outer layer of their teaching, the part that's easy to access. It's the practical wisdom that has made Stoicism so popular again today. It helps with anxiety, frustration, and trying to find a stable sense of self in a shaky world. It's a philosophy that empowers you, telling you that your happiness doesn't depend on your job, your relationships, or your health, but on how you think about those things. But focusing only on this can feel like something's missing. It can paint a picture of us standing against the cosmos, a lonely outpost of reason in an otherwise indifferent universe. It can feel a bit incomplete. Is that it? Is the universe just a random backdrop for our personal struggles? This common view creates a huge gap between us and the world. But what if the Stoics never wanted that gap to be there? What if the fortress of the mind wasn't meant to keep the world out, but to create a space quiet enough to finally hear what the universe was saying? The turning point, the clue, hidden in the cosmos. The first clue that there's more going on is a single powerful Greek word: logos. For the Stoics, the logos wasn't just logic or reason like we think of it. It was the soul of the entire universe. They believed the cosmos wasn't a dead machine, but a single, living, breathing organism, a gigantic, intelligent being, and the logos was its mind. They saw this divine reason as a physical thing, like a creative fire or a vital breath, what they called pneuma, that flows through and organizes everything, from the biggest stars to the smallest grain of sand. Just think about what that means. If the universe itself is rational and intelligent, then it's not the random, chaotic place we often think it is. It's a connected, coherent whole. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: everything is interwoven, and the web is holy. None of its parts are unconnected. They are composed harmoniously, and together they compose the world. This isn't just pretty poetry. For them, it was a statement of fact. The Stoics saw God as the universe itself, not some distant creator watching from afar. The divine is right here, in every leaf, every river, every person. And our own ability to reason, the very tool we use to build our inner strength, isn't just our reason. It's a spark, a tiny piece of that divine fire, a fragment of the universal logos that we all share. This idea completely flips the purpose of Stoic practice. The goal isn't to use our reason to fight against a chaotic universe. The goal is to use our little piece of the logos to understand and sync up with the much bigger logos of the cosmos. It's not about building a fortress against nature, it's about realizing we are nature. Our inner world and the outer world aren't separate. They're two sides of the same coin, both governed by the same divine, rational principle. This is the turning point. This is where Stoicism, the practical life hack philosophy, starts to look more like a deep spiritual tradition. A path to feeling a real, profound connection with everything. Maybe the Stoics weren't just logicians, maybe they were guarding a cosmic perspective, and they left clues on how to see it, hidden in their more complex ideas. The exploration, unlocking the cosmic secrets. If the Stoics really were pointing to these deeper truths, they didn't just write them down in a simple how-to guide. They seem to have woven them into their philosophy, believing that real wisdom had to be uncovered. Some scholars believe this is because they thought a single, timeless truth, a kind of perennial wisdom, runs through all true philosophies and religions. To get to these secrets, they used a powerful interpretive tool, Allegories, the art of reading things allegorically. Secret 1, the Library of Myth, Allegories. To the average person back then, the Greek myths were just stories about petty, dramatic, and flawed gods. Plato even wanted to ban some of them for being such bad role models. The Stoics took a completely different path. They didn't censor the myths, they decoded them. They saw the stories of Zeus, Hera, and Hercules not as literal history, but as philosophical allegories, symbolic tales about the cosmos. For example, when Homer wrote about the gods fighting, the Stoics didn't see a soap opera on Mount Olympus. They saw a symbolic description of cosmic forces in conflict and balance. Zeus might represent the divine fire of the Logos, while Hera stood for the air. Their arguments were a coded lesson in physics and cosmology. The myths weren't just stories, they were textbooks on the nature of reality, written in the language of symbols. This way of thinking suggests the ancients who wrote the myths weren't just storytellers, but philosophers who expressed their understanding through symbols, and trying to find that deeper meaning was a spiritual exercise. It forced the student to look past the surface and use their own spark of the logos to connect with the universal truths hidden inside. We only need to learn how to read them. The seeds of creation, logos spermatikos. This leads us to one of the most fascinating ideas in Stoicism, the logos spermatikos, or the seminal reason. The Stoics taught that the divine logos doesn't just arrange the universe, it actively creates it from the inside out. It plants the seeds, sperma, of everything that has ever existed or ever will exist. Imagine the entire history of the universe, from the Big Bang to the formation of galaxies, from the first cell to you watching this right now, all contained in a single, divine seed. This seed isn't separate from the universe, it is the universe in its potential form. The Logos then unfolds this potential over time, guiding the birth, growth, and death of all things according to its built-in rational plan. This is a pretty mystical concept. It suggests that everything in the universe carries the blueprint of the whole thing inside it. The oak tree is in the acorn, and the entire cosmic order is in every single particle. Our own minds, our own little sparks of the Logos, are part of this creative force. When we choose to act with reason and virtue, we're not just improving ourselves, we're taking part in the cosmic act of creation, helping bring order to our little corner of the universe. The Stoics were telling us that the creative power of the universe isn't out there, it's woven into our very being. The climax, the great cosmic cycle and the web of all things. If the Stoics had a unique view of creation, they also had a mind-bending view of time. They didn't see time as a straight line, but as a great, repeating circle. They taught that the universe goes through endless cycles, each one ending in a fiery inferno called ekpyrosis, and then beginning again in a rebirth called palingenesis. During ekpyrosis, the entire cosmos is consumed by the divine fire, dissolving back into its pure, unified state. Then, from that fire, the universe is born again. Now, here's the wild part. Some Stoics, especially the influential Chrysippus, argued that each new cycle isn't just similar, it's an exact replica of the one before. Every person, every event, every single thought is repeated, identically, forever. This is the doctrine of eternal recurrence. Scholars still debate just how literally the Stoics meant this, but the spiritual implication of taking it at face value is staggering. It means you've lived this exact life countless times before, and you'll live it countless times again. You will hear this very sentence, in this exact moment, in the next cosmic cycle, and the one after that. If you believe that, it changes everything about your choices. If every action you take will echo for eternity, then every moment becomes infinitely important. There's no escaping the consequences, no hoping for a do-over next time. The only response is to live so well that you'd be happy to repeat this life, exactly as it is, forever. This is the ultimate test of amor fati, a love of one's fate. It's a challenge to embrace your life so completely that the thought of its endless repetition brings you joy, not terror. This cyclical view of time is tied to another fascinating Stoic idea, sympathia, or cosmic sympathy. This is the belief that since the entire universe is one living thing with one soul, the Logos, every single part is connected to every other part. It's like a giant, invisible web. A stone falling on Earth could, in some tiny way, ripple out and affect the most distant star. This cosmic web is what made something like divination seem plausible to the Stoics. They believed that by observing signs in nature, like the flight of birds, a wise person whose own reason was in tune with the cosmic Logos could interpret these events as clues to what fate had in store. For them, it wasn't magic. It was the science of reading the patterns in a deeply interconnected, intelligent cosmos. Together, eternal recurrence and sympathia point to an incredible vision of the universe, a single, unified, intelligent, and interconnected whole. Everything is part of a grand, repeating tapestry. There are no accidents, only the unfolding of divine reason. The resolution, the sage as mystic. So, if we look at Stoicism through this lens, what does it mean to be a Stoic sage? It changes the ideal from just a person with perfect logic to something more. In this interpretation, the sage becomes a kind of mystic. The sage is someone who has gone beyond just enduring the world and has learned to participate in it. Through reason and discipline, they've quieted their own mind so much that their inner Logos becomes a clear mirror for the universal Logos. They don't just accept their fate, they understand their part in the grand design. They see the invisible web of sympathia and recognize their own actions as threads in that divine tapestry. So the Stoic path could be seen as a journey. It starts with the practical, ethical work of getting your mind right, building that inner citadel. But that's just step one. Once your mind is calm and clear, it can start to sense the rational order of the cosmos, not as a theory in a book, but as a living reality. The sage is the one who has finished that journey. Following this interpretation, they can read the book of nature. They see the allegories and the myths. They feel the creative energy of the Logos Spermatikos inside them. They can look at the idea of eternal recurrence and say yes to living their life over and over again. This is the ultimate way to live in accordance with nature. It's something like a mystical union with the mind of the universe. This perspective shifts Stoicism from a philosophy of resilience to one of reverence. The universe is no longer a random stage for our moral dramas. It's a divine, intelligent, and beautiful organism, and we are a vital part of it. Our purpose isn't just to be good, but to wake up to our cosmic identity. The Stoics, these masters of logic, may have been guiding us toward a state of cosmic consciousness, where the line between you and the universe begins to blur. And that might be their greatest secret, hidden in plain sight. This way of looking at Stoicism really changes things, suggesting it's as deep as any Eastern mystical tradition. But what do you think? Is this reading of Stoicism a stretch, or does it unlock a hidden layer of their wisdom? Let me know what you think in the comments. Which of these secret ideas clicks with you the most? And if you like exploring the deeper, stranger side of ancient philosophy, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. For centuries, we've turned to the Stoics for strength in a crazy world. We've seen them as masters of the mind, teaching a logic that can handle anything life throws at us. But maybe we've been looking at the key and thinking it was the treasure. Perhaps the real treasure the Stoics offered wasn't the inner fortress, but the realization that the fortress has no walls. The idea that our own reason is just a spark from the cosmic fire that lights up everything. That the universe isn't something to be survived, but a rational mystery to be embraced. By exploring ideas like a creative Logos and a vision of eternal, repeating time, the Stoics did more than just teach us how to live. They may have left us a map that leads from the lonely fortress of the self to the very heart of the cosmos. Maybe they weren't just philosophers, maybe they were gatekeepers. And the gate they guard opens inward to the divine reason we all possess and outward to the intelligent living universe that is our true home.